Fox News alert on new information just in to Fox News and on Fox News. Now finding ourselves in the middle of what is now a growing series of reports about the Department of Justice targeting reporters and investigating media leaks. Welcome to America Live, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. This is a stunning twist in the Department of Justice investigation of U.S. journalists. As we learn, not one but three Fox News staffers are now caught up in DOJ investigations into media leaks. Remember, last week it was the Associated Press, and Eric Holder justified it by saying, this is one of the worst leaks in my career I've ever seen. Well, is this one of the worst, too? Because you did the same thing to James Rosen. In the biggest story to break so far, the Washington Post reporting last night that Fox News chief Washington correspondent James Rosen was specifically targeted, with government trackers monitoring his every move around the State Department. The Department of Justice apparently able to get the subpoenas that it needed to track James by effectively identifying him as a potential criminal. And in just the last half hour, we learned that reporter William LaJeunesse and a Fox News producer were also part of a look into leaks concerning their reporting on the Fast and Furious investigation. Shannon Bream has the very latest. She is live in Washington with more. Shannon?
Well, Megyn, what's key in these new revelations about the Justice Department and FBI investigation into our colleague James Rosen is that the FBI agent who filed the affidavit, in this case the one in support of a search warrant that would allow authorities to access Rosen's personal email accounts, said, in his opinion, the agent, that Rosen had committed a crime by allegedly working to obtain information from a source at the State Department. In that affidavit by FBI agent Reginald Reyes, the agent writes that he believed the evidence in the case showed Rosen had broken the law, quote, at the very least, either as an aider, abettor, and or co-conspirator. Now, Rosen says he was never contacted by the government, despite this in-depth investigation, which, according to the Washington Post, including obtaining that search warrant, not only for his personal email account, it also was tracking his movements by examining the use of his security badge as he was coming and going, working at the State Department. Also out today, you mentioned this report by the Inspector General at the Justice Department investigating a potential leak to the media regarding Fast and Furious, that controversial gun-walking operation. The report mentions two Fox employees, reporter William LaJeunesse and producer Mike Levine. The report quotes from emails from both Levine and LaJeunesse, and what we don't know at this point is if the sources within the Justice Department may have shared those emails with investigators or if the Fox employees' accounts were directly accessed by investigators. It's simply a question we cannot answer at this point. I'll point you to this. A portion of the IG report states that investigators, quote, issued an administrative subpoena to a communication service provider to identify the subscriber of a personal email address. We don't know who that belonged to. Well, the news all comes today against the backdrop of controversy over the Justice Department's secret sweep of phone records for 20 phone lines used by dozens of Associated Press reporters. Megyn?
All right. Let's just back up a minute here, because in the case of the Associated Press, one of the most outrageous pieces of that leak investigation is the fact that the DOJ gave no notice to the Associated Press. They just went into court. And let me tell you, as somebody who practiced law for 9 years, you go into court and you ask for a warrant, you have a subpoena that you want signed, and you have no adversary, it's pretty easy to get when no one's arguing against you. And it's just you talking to the judge saying, trust me, I really, really, really need this, especially when you've got the imprimatur of the DOJ, okay? So now we are learning that that not only happened with the Associated Press, but with Fox News, with James, because this is the piece I'm looking to clarify with you. Not only did James not have noticed that they wanted to snoop on his personal phone calls and emails, his personal communication records, but Fox News was not provided notice either.
As far as I know, it was a surprise to everyone when we read the details in the Washington Post about just how extensive and in-depth this had been. And in addition to talking to James, I have talked to Mike and William LaJeunesse as well. All three of them say never any notice. And again, in Mike and William's cases, we don't know how their emails were accessed. But all three of our colleagues say they were never contacted by the government, essentially for potentially accessing all kinds of personal information and going in and getting those search warrants.
This is incredible. There is a process that is set up when there have been leaks to protect national security, as there should be. And normally what would happen is the DOJ would come to the reporter or the news organization, the Associated Press, James Rosen, Fox News, and say, we're investigating, and will you work with us, and what will you share and what won't you? And if you reach an impasse, then you go into court and they say we want a huge, very wide range of information, and the news organization would say we think it should be this narrow, and the judge gets to decide. In both of these instances, we are talking about a Department of Justice that just unfettered, to use the DOJ, the administration's favorite word, went in there and said, give it to us, because there's this exception to get us around the notice requirement when national security is truly at issue. And that's what we understand happened in both cases, correct?
That's what it sounds like. And by the way, just to note, there is a statement cited by the Washington Post about the Justice Department on both James Rosen's case and the AP, saying that we abided by all applicable laws, regulations, and long-standing Justice Department policies intended to safeguard First Amendment interests of both the press and also the public. There may be some who take issue with that. Megan?
Shannon, thank you. We've got much more on this later in the show. We are going to break down the potential political fallout for this administration. I mean, how often has this happened? I thought it was the worst ever, you know, one of the top 2 or 3 Eric Holder had ever seen. Was one of the other 2 James Rosen? Because apparently they did the same thing with him. We're going to go over this with our senior analyst, Britt Hume, and we are going to ask a former federal prosecutor, Fox News legal analyst, Lise Wheel, whether the Attorney General, Eric Holder, may have broken the law here. How many times has this happened? How many news agencies have been targeted? How many reporters have been targeted? How many times has the DOJ apparently ignored the main crux of the federal law to exploit an exception to it, and is it exploiting that exception appropriately? We're going to look at all of that.